Steve Wright's big guests.
And now the terribly warm James Nocty is here. Now just listen to this voice.
Good morning, good afternoon, I should say to you, Steve. But you see, I live in the mornings, really.
Let me ask you a question about doing the Today programme, which you've now done, I believe, for 20 years.
That's it. 20
Very
years
good.
in a few days.
I listen every day, and I like it when you and Evan are on, because, how can I put this? You two are very detail-oriented.
Are we? He's more detail-oriented than I am. I'm broad brush and he's paintbrush. We get on well.
Okay,
but
now,
you need different people doing it, different styles.
many of the people that you work with I would class as eccentric.
Oh, I don't know about that. John Humphreys has never done anything eccentric in his life.
I didn't mention John Humphreys, you did. Let's ask you a question about the Today programme. Do you eat your breakfast as you're doing the show? Do you do your research in the morning? Do you do your research at night? Stuff
It's
like that.
sort of perpetual. As for eating breakfast on air, I think it's a bad idea, because you might feel like there's an old P.G. Woodhouse line, au contraire, as the man said if his breakfast had gone down well on the cross-channel ferry. But you wouldn't like to cough or, as it were, do something, because they might think you were reacting to the guest.
Yes.
In horror. In fact, it's a piece of toast that's stuck in your gullet. So toast's a no-no, really. Copious amounts of tea.
Yeah. James Nocty is one of the UK's best-known broadcasters and journalists. He's previously written books about politics and music. However, he has just published his debut novel. It's called The Madness of July. The Madness of July is set in London in the mid-70s. It's about Will Fleming. He's a Foreign Office minister, and that's where I'll leave it and pick it up from there, Jim. But, you know, obviously, take us a little way through.
Well, he's an interesting character. I don't want to give the plot away because it's supposed to be slightly mysterious. I hope it is. It's supposed to make you want to read the next page, which, generally speaking, in a novel is a good thing.
Yeah.
But what we do learn about Fleming, really on page 1, is that he is a minister, he's an up-and-coming politician. He's a sort of gilded figure in politics. He comes of quite a well-off family. He's well-dressed, he's handsome, he's got a lovely wife. He's sort of got it made. But the really interesting thing about him is that he used to be a spy. And he has scars, literally and figuratively, in his mind and on his body from that experience. But he turned to politics for reasons we're not quite sure. But then a series of events unfolds, all in the course of 5 or 6 days, rather dramatic, melodramatic events that threaten various people, including him. And he's sort of called back to the colours. He's asked to use his old skills as a spook and somebody who can see inside people's heads to try to sort it all out. And so there's a roller coaster weekend, and it's very hot. I think it's probably 1976, which was a very hot summer.
Oh, OK. Hot,
but we don't know where the
well,
government is. We don't know what party Will Fleming... I'm not interested in that. I hate books that turn into ciphers or puzzles. It's about him, and it's about the people in politics, and it's about how they behave in the middle of what I hope is an engrossing mystery. Simple as that. And it goes on for 352 pages.
So did you have to do lots of research to get into this character's head?
Well, what I did was to go into my own head. I was a young reporter in the Commons in the 70s. And that's when I first sort of came across politics and politicians and have a glass of beer with people late at night on the terrace and all the rest of it. And it's when I became interested in the way they behaved. I was much less interested in tax rates or the Clause 4 of an important bill than I was actually in what makes them tick. And that's what interests me. And I think the point about Fleming, I think what we discover about him in the course of this quite exciting story, I hope, that goes to Washington and the Scottish Highlands, from where he's from, as well as London, is that he understands that politics involves walking a fine line where on one side of the line there are bright lights and fame and glory and a sort of great public career, but very close to it there are sort of wild emotions that have to do with ambition, and they can sometimes break you. And I think a public life is often an exercise in fragility.
Oh, yeah.
So there you are.
Two-part question here. I noticed that he's called Will Fleming, of course. Will has been a foreign minister and is called Will. And of course, Ian Fleming.
Well, you see, the Ian Fleming point, you're like my wife, Steve. She said to me, Fleming, why did you choose Fleming? And I said, well, it's just a nice name. And if with a Y, they'd use the old spelling because they're that sort of family. I didn't think of the Ian Fleming connection, James Bond.
Doesn't
but
hurt.
I suppose, it doesn't hurt. And I suppose in the back of my mind, maybe that's just a nice little joke. I don't know, but it wasn't intentional. I just wanted to write about people that I was fascinated. You asked about research. I just wrote about things I vaguely knew about, and the rest I just made up.
So we presume that he's public school.
Well, he is, but I think he was probably... I'm still learning about him, you know. You see, this is only the first... There are more to come, I tell you. That's the bad news. But I'm still learning about him. In fact, the actor who's reading the book for the sort of recorded version, the digital book, rang me up, and we were talking about it, and he said, well, what's his voice like? You know, is he sort of like David Cameron? I said, absolutely not. You know, he's got to have a Scottish voice, but it's very proper.
Why aren't you reading it? Do the publishers know that you're a broadcaster, Jim?
I think they noticed. I think it's better to have an actorial person doing it. Yes. If I could have done the American voices, it would have been amazing. No, but I can't.
Listening to you talk, and I know this is your first novel, we should say this, you obviously had great fun doing this. But was it difficult as well, Jim?
It was difficult, but it was great fun. What I discovered was the joy of trying to write dialogue. One of the characteristics of the story is that people in politics have conversations where neither person is telling the whole truth. It doesn't mean that they're deliberately deceiving, although sometimes they are, but there's always something being held back. And it's that business of people never absolutely coming clean.
I'm sensing a 13-part series on Netflix.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Are you volunteering for a part? I've got a part for you.
OK, I'll do it. James Naughty's debut novel, The Madness of July, is out now, and you can hear him presenting the Today programme on Radio 4 and Good Morning Scotland on BBC Radio Scotland on Thursdays and Fridays also. Good to see you again, Jim. Thank you very much. James
And you, Steve.
Good luck with it. Well, let me bring on Janie Lee Grace and Tim Smith, and let's take a look at some factoids today. Hello, Jenny, what you got?
Well, this is the best of all. Edmund Burke said facts are to the mind what food is to the body.
Quite right. I like Edmund.
The world uses more cotton today than any other type of fibre, and cotton's quality is based on three things. They are colour, purity, and the strength of the fibre.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Clouds fly higher during the day than at night.
There are 1,339 outdoor sculptures in Texas.
Thank you, Janie Lee Grace. Look, Tim Smith.
The Everglades swamp is the widest river on the planet.
The Eiffel Tower, how tall?
Oh, how many etages? It's very tall, but I can't remember how tall.
OK.
488 feet.
No, a little taller than that.
More than that. I'd have thought more like 1,000 feet.
No, not quite as tall as that. 892 feet.
Almost. 980 foot tall, the Tour Eiffel. Many etages.
Factoids.
There are some favourite Ollies that we know, Oliver Hardy being one of them, Ollie Hardy, and then we quite like Ollie Murs, but can it get any better than Ollie Smith, everybody? How's that for an intro?
That's the best intro I've ever had in my whole life. I absolutely love you guys.
Ollie Smith is a wine expert who's known for his regular TV appearances and for his weekly wine column in the Daily Mail. You sometimes see him on that very, very trendy show, Saturday Kitchen, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, when I see you on there, I think I maybe want some wine, even though it's quite early in the day.
You know, I'm really red, and it's one of those questions, because I have to taste wine at 9 in the morning. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, I actually prefer to taste in the morning. And I'll get through, 10, 20, 30 wines at a stretch. And my job is really to look for the bargains and look for the flavours that are going to excite people. And by the time it's 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, it's like anything with your life. Your palate's a bit jaded, a little bit tired by then, because you've fed loads of things through it.
Is red wine really good for you? I mean, you're not a fat guy and you drink lots of wine.
I do, but I used to be a bit more porky. I lost 4.5 stone about 2 or 3 years ago, and last year I ran the London Marathon. But I do passionately believe, for me, it wasn't so much the booze as a food. And the way I lost my weight was by just trimming back the portion size by about a third.
Yeah.
And I cut back a little bit on the booze, but I really chose wines that were a bit lower in alcohol, and that really helped me out. But I'd say bit of fitness, absolutely wine is part of a balanced diet. They do say that red wine is good for your vascular system, which is your heart and your veins and all that stuff, to keep the blood pumping.
Right.
We get a new story every 5 minutes about this stuff, so I would just always stick to the kind of moderation is the best way.
What about real corks?
Yeah, that's a
Pretend
great question.
corks, screw tops?
You know what? Screw tops are great. They're really convenient. They keep the wine fresh, and I think for young wines, they're brilliant. Cork is better for aging the wine. I'm not mad about plastic corks, if I'm honest, because they sometimes are a bit loose, sometimes a bit tight, and that means that air can get into the bottle and it can turn your wine a bit sharp. But if you're drinking it straight away, don't panic about it. Get it home from the supermarket.
Okay.
You're all right.
Now, we've all done done that thing, haven't we, where we think it's a cork, but in fact, because it's got a cover over it, it was in fact a screw.
Yes.
And
You put the corkscrew through it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been done at Smith Towers. It's terrible. Terrible mistake.
Starting tomorrow night, you can see Ollie and presenter actress Jenny Barnett in a new series on the Travel Channel. Jenny and Ollie's West Coast Wine Adventure, it's called. It's a 4-part series combining a road trip in the USA with fabulous food and, of course, great wine. The first episode, it's on tomorrow night, 7 p.m, on the Travel Channel, and Jenny and Ollie start out in Portland in Oregon. So tell us a bit about that particular show.
So Portland, Oregon was the most outstanding place I think I've ever been. I've never been to a more bonkers place in all my life.
Why?
Well, they just make extraordinary things. Like, I went to a donut store, and normally if you think of a donut, you think of a round thing with jam in the middle. These guys were making donuts in all shapes and sizes, including one that I had to taste that was in the shape of a voodoo doll, and I actually had to stab it with a twiglet. I'm not that kind of guy.
No, I know you're not.
I'm not that kind of guy.
Who is?
It's sinister. But the food out there, I've got to say, coffee is amazing in that part of America. Stumptown coffee was fantastic. Deschutes Brewery, that place is known as Beervana as well, because the beers are so good from up there. It's brilliant.
That's a great
I tell
name.
you, you've got to go to Portland. It's phenomenal.
And the Enzo Winery.
Oh, Enso was great. So that's an urban winery. You have this fantastic wine that's being effectively made within the city limits by a brilliant young couple. They're getting the grapes in from outside.
Right.
But they've set up a fantastic winery where you go and you can see how the wine's made. And it's more like a bar, but it's just so informal, really welcoming, great little glasses of wine, and the guys are so down to earth, and that for me is brilliant.
I can't remember what city it was. It might have been Atlanta, it might have been New York, where people had roof gardens where they were growing the grapes.
Yeah, well, back in the day, I mean, in San Francisco, before the 1906 earthquake, most of the wineries were within the city limits. You had a huge number of them, and then sadly, the earthquake struck, and they moved out into Napa and Sonoma and all around to build new wineries. But yeah, that's how the story happened.
And am I wrong or right about it being the fruitiest wine?
I think you're onto something there. I mean, the big brands that you see on the shelves in the UK, they make fruity styles of wine. You know, the stuff that you see in the supermarket for $5. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy that stuff, it's bouncy and it's a bit of a giggle. But equally, I'd say there's some incredible fine wine going on out there that really blew my mind. I loved it.
Okay. The second episode is on straight after the first one, and they start out in South Oregon, where Ollie goes to the dancing vineyard in the Rogue Valley.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You can't let that pass.
Well,
Could
I
you
know.
just explain the dancing vineyard?
Yeah, I can. It's their names. Dan and Cindy are the owners. So Dan
I
Sin.
see. Okay,
And
Dan
I've got to
Sin.
say, they make amazing pizzas there as well. At the end, the crew were just eyeballing those pizzas, and they very kindly gave us a few. It was lovely.
And Jenny visits a restaurant called Smithfield's in Ashland, which is set up by a British chef. Thus, he's called it Smithfield's, Neil Clooney. Ollie and Jenny end up at the Red Lily Vineyard in the Applegate. Were you sober during this show?
Once or
Was
twice.
Jenny?
Well, Jenny was really sober. She was doing most of the driving, to be honest. But that was an amazing journey. I remember we met some Trappist monks as well at New Clairvaux. Monks making wine, very welcoming people, and actually really interested in a great drink. They were obviously very fantastic and very devout, but at the same time, they wanted to know, how can we make our wine better? And they were also interested in beer and all sorts of stuff. They were an absolute hoot.
Okay, now programmes 3 and 4 are on this Thursday evening from 7 p.m. In the third show, Ollie and Jenny explore the Sonoma Valley, and in the last show, they combine country and city with cheese and wine tasting on the menu in Sonoma and San Francisco. And you can see Ollie Smith in Jenny and Ollie's West Coast Wine Adventure starting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on the Travel Channel. That sounds like a great gig. Just before you go, recommend a wine to us, your latest thing that you're enjoying.
Oh, I'd say so many people out there love Pinot Grigio. I would say there's another grape out there called Verdicchio from Italy, which is really flavoursome. It's just as lemony, just as zesty. You can find it for £5 or £6. Doesn't need to cost a fortune. It's scrumptious.
Thank you, Jolly Ollie.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Ollie Smith, everybody. Thanks, Ollie. Good luck with it.
Thanks for downloading Steve Wright's Big Guests. Join Steve and the team weekdays from 2 on 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.